I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Yvonne Blaszczyk, President and CEO of BMG Group. Thank you so much for being here. Always great to have you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Yes, definitely. We have a lot to get into. And as usual, let's start with gold. We're catching up on our last conversation all the way back toward the beginning of January. So it's looking a little bit different. We were speaking then just before gold rose to all-time highs. Of course, since then, we've seen the price pull back. And this past week, we've seen gold go below 4,000. So I wonder if you can break down what you're seeing in the market, why we are seeing this price decline for gold right now.
Basically, fluctuation in gold prices is normal. Right now, we are going through a very profound political transformation in the world. There are a lot of issues, not only wars, policy makers, society at risk, new emergence in demographic changes in the world. So the financial landscape is responding to what's occurring right now. But in the long term, gold always fluctuates, and in the long term, it is actually, has an incredible value, and of course the increase in price. So what we are right now seeing is a reflection of what is happening in the world. So as I mentioned, the global financial landscape is shaping, and it's shifting differently. Geopolitical conflicts are in a suspended animation. There is a resurgent inflation, the fragile economy, but the most important is demographic changes and what is occurring as a result of that. These trends allow the policymakers to make certain decisions, try to anticipate risk, adapt strategies effectively, but it's not really working that well. There are too many denominators, too many fragmented factors that influence or cancel each other. The world is divided. The societies are divided. There's a huge reemergence of a right-wing politics in Europe. And in California, in US, there is a reemergence of kind of left-wing politics. The rest of US is on another side. So it's a huge division. And everything that is occurring is dividing world even more. Gold is, as you know, is a safe haven. But it's closely tied to its fluctuations, the geopolitical occurrences in the marketplace. So that is I think the most important factor. I do still believe, and I think JP Morgan researchers believe, that the gold is going to be reaching $6,000 an ounce by the end of the year, and maybe even more. It all depends what will occur. Right now, we have a lot of interesting things happening that grab public opinion, and no one is really looking what is really happening. Today, U.S. Supreme Court made some amazing decisions, which I think will have an impact on really more on society than on really overall economic or financial impact in the world. For example, the Supreme Court struck down President Donald Trump's attempt to the birthright citizenship. And as you know, that has been part of the Constitution since 1868. And it had a different purpose. Nobody really at that time conceived that it would be kind of a birthright tourism and everything else. But that issue is really attempting to affect the demographics, changing demographics. Changing demographics is an issue of culture and values, not much as a racial issue. It is really, so a lot of countries, I think, will be looking at that. And of course, appropriate policies will be made. The other one that I think really may affect geopolitics is the President Trump's cannot use IEPA to impose tariffs. That means the president's ability to use tariffs as a leverage in the political situation is limited. The other I think policies that were made, that one that some people are going to be looking at is basically the fundraising and the use of a party and fundraising limitations and shifts. But that will affect mostly US. But I think the most important is the tariffs and of course, the birthright citizenship, because other countries will follow. There is a huge concern about that cultural and ideology shift in the world, by many countries. The other big thing is the ongoing geopolitical conflicts. As you know, the war between Russia and Ukraine is on the one hand is a huge moneymaker for some groups. On the other hand is a huge problem for Europe being depleted of its resources, financial resources, of course, energy resources. That depletion also benefits perhaps, some other fractions that are, supplying or manufacturing a lot of the weapons. But at the end of the day, winter is coming. As we know from history, any kind of a military action in during World War II, Napoleon Bonaparte against Russia is usually limited by geographic and climate situation, and so I'm not too sure, but how that will unfold. But I don't see any resolution. Interestingly enough, President Putin is not really responding. He's not doing anything. BRICS countries are very silent. They're all affected by the other conflict in the Middle East with Iran. But in September, there is a summit of BRICS countries. So I'm anticipating some sort of a response that then be shock to the markets as well. Also, the Iran-US peace talks are basically there are all sorts of conflicting reports. Each side has a different interpretation what is happening. Now, the amount of time that was announced for some sort of revolution is also September. The other thing is happening in September. There'll be election in Russia. And I think there is a lot of anytime there is a war and countries attacked, the obvious victims are the citizens. People are dying, people have economic constraints, and that's a very unpleasant situation for any government to be re-elected. So that would be another concern. The concern is also that there are fractions that may be worse. Sometimes they say that it's better to be with devil that you know, the devil you don't know. And that may be the situation they will be facing. What's happening in Europe? Europe is going to become more dependent on the US, on the oil energy supply, and politically, of course. There are also changes that just occurred recently in Hungary and some other places. You can see that there is a shift of really supporting President Trump's agenda, which will have some interesting impact on the financial systems. Now, the best scenario, I think that we can hope for is that each of those elements, geopolitical, all those conflicts will be resolved in silos. There will not be sort of a avalanche that will have some negative impact on everyone. But I think one of the interesting things that is happening right now is that Europe is a very interesting, I think, place for reaffirming the US dollar as a reserve currency. As you know, for a little while, there was a lot of talk about basically removing the dollar from its current status as a reverse currency. Well, oil is priced in US dollars. So is gold. But oil and US dollars are really very connected since the departure from the gold standard. So right now, oil is down to, I think today, about $72 per barrel, but it will go up for sure to almost $100 by the end of the year, which will have an impact on consumers. And again, they will have an impact on politicians as well. So for now, keeping the oil low also impacted gold. So it's a good time to buy. Central banks are buying. Last year, for example, it was an unbelievable amount of gold was bought by central banks. Poland announced that they want to have a 30% of all the reserves in gold. So there are emerging economies or powers in Europe that will be influenced by how much gold they possess. The other thing with gold is, if you were a policymaker or looking at how the world is unfolding, by having opening the doors for gold price to go up to, let's say, $10,000, which will occur at some point, will make a lot of rogue countries and countries on the opposite political spectrum very powerful because they have probably a huge reserves of gold. So those are very, very interesting things that are occurring. The other thing I think about a few weeks, a month ago, everybody was hoping that the interest rates will go down, which affects, of course, gold. But they have to be maintained status quo. They have to be maintained because either way, you either increase the debt load on the U.S. or you decrease your popularity with society. So the world is divided. U.S. is divided. The decisions that were made today by Supreme Court will provide further division because there was no clear win. So what will happen? Both sides of the spectrum will have will create a lot of political pressure. They will create basically different scenarios that will take everyone's attention. What is really happening in the world into issues that were resurrected, perhaps for that reason, to create a focus. Usually when there is a problem, any kind of geopolitical or war, you try to focus people on something. But it's not really working well. Everything is fractured. So gold is still the best solution. Now, other precious metals, silver, as you know, with the industrial application is of course up there. And the interesting part is platinum. Platinum today is, I think, around $1,500 US. But platinum in Canadian dollars is $2,200. So platinum was more affected than gold and silver in the fluctuations, daily fluctuations, in sort of negative spin. And platinum is absolutely essential to the production of explosive jet fuel, fertilizers as well. And so you think, okay, if that's the situation, so that means that perhaps, the lower price of platinum is a kind of a good point to replenish all the supplies in order to produce ammunition, in order to produce more, jet fuel and explosives necessary for armed conflict. So that's a very interesting. So if you go and analyze those numbers further and say why something goes down, that provides an ability to purchase more. When it goes up, people either hold on to it, but there's still always some sell-off. People made enough money, they want to dispose of it. So it's a very interesting, even daily fluctuations. But at the end of the year, and I really look at gold or precious metals on an annual basis, and it's a very positive picture. And I think, anyone that is looking at those numbers can see what affects them and how it's going to unfold by the end of the year. It's going to be a very tough year for energy. Winter is coming. This is going to be very critical. I think that the cost of living is going to go up. A lot of issues will occur in the election in the fall in the States because President Trump was elected on several issues. One of them was the lower cost of living, lower gas, no wars. We have a different situation right now. So even if there is a drop in oil prices at the pumps, people are still paying a lot of money. People are still going to be paying for groceries. People are divided ideologically and culturally. So there is a lot of a lot of conflicting factors that when you look in the history, the major empires fell apart, turning into ashes because of the similar situations. They were extended. Roman Empire was so extended that all those fractional developments internally were not being attended to. And we may be looking at that kind of situation as well. So that's
Great overview of the geopolitical landscape right now and the impact for precious metals. I think it's really clear there's so much tension in the world right now and division as you were outlining. I think people are a little surprised given the circumstances, which we have many factors in gold's favor to see the metal at the current level. So you're expecting the price to rise to the 6,000 level, maybe by the end of the year. Is there a trigger that you think would break gold out of the current price range and take it up there? Is there a factor that you're looking for to make that happen?
There are actually three factors. Number one is going to be Russia's response to the bombing, the kind of a toll that they are having, every day with drones attacks, and their response to it, because also that will have a impact on their election, and the survival of the current administration. That's going to have a huge impact. The other one is going to what will happen with BRICS countries, how they're going to respond to Iran, what is happening in Iran. Israel is extremely vulnerable, as you know, from Palestine, Lebanon, from all different countries. And you probably read that there was a proposal that perhaps U.S. should withdraw all the military bases from Middle East and put them in Israel, which would secure Israel completely. However, will make the other countries perhaps have a looser relationship with U.S. And that creates a perfect environment for the gold to actually be at its proper level. Right now, gold is undervalued, is temporary, and I think it's also perhaps necessary by some factors to push it down in order to be able to purchase it at the discount prices. So I would, people that typically are in a gold zone, they understand that. They know you can just sit there, drink champagne, and wait for the gold to go up. You don't have to worry that it will disappear. It is money. It has been money for 5,000 years and shall remain. The other thing is the trend to back the fiat currencies with gold is not. People are not talking about it. No one is discussing it, but it's out there. And should that occur, what will happen, to actually the hegemony of US dollar? I don't know, because there is no discussion or even assessing how much gold reserve US has, and are they in a position to ever back US dollar with gold and be less dependent on oil. So that's a huge question. The other thing I think with the dollarization or de-dollarization in the world, it is a huge, I think a challenge for the future and future generations. So let's say if Europe gets totally depleted financially, they have huge debts. They are very politically invigorated to fight, to support. They don't think of their own countries. They are already in a conflict. The European Union has a lot of opposition from individual members for a variety of reasons. It's very expensive to have another layer of government, and it's nice to hold hands and sing kumbaya, but it's not exactly a good for their own longevity and future, but also is a conflicting and sometimes punitive rules and policies that are imposed on the individual countries. So I can see that system very much weakening. So as the resources get depleted, there's a possibility that having a overwhelming support for everything outside your own country instead of first taking care of your own needs is like letting a vampire to run a blood bank. So this is that's what happened, which will be a great story for US. US is always really a second currency in Europe. So that will reinforce hegemony of US or longevity of US as a reserve currency, even if they, particularly if they will substitute the dependent on oil and look at gold. So that's.
Speaking about the US, I wanted to bring up this idea about gold revaluation that's been making headlines. There's been talk about that as we approach July 4th, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Is that something realistic that could happen? What do you think?
Well, that same thing occurred, I think, a year ago or so, that everybody was looking, what happened at the Federal Reserve. Did one ever was audited? No, nobody really knows. We know that during World War II, a lot of countries actually moved their gold to US for safekeeping. Since then, they took it back. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if it's even possible. And of course, we don't know how much gold is there. As this gold is becoming a strategic pillar of a longevity on one's currency, I'm not too sure it'd be so wise to open the kimono to the world, regardless if you have a lot or not. So so I don't have a huge hopes. It is going to be a very interesting topic for discussion. There'll be opinions, analysis, but at the end of the day, it is a strategic, strategic, almost a weapon that country can hold and for their own survival. So I don't think disclosure and audit would be beneficial for the government. So but it's interesting. It's going to be interesting dialogue. And there were attempts to actually have an audit and actually determine how much gold US actually has. Is it paper gold? Is it just, do they actually have a physical gold allocated or not? And that has been a question for, for decades. So that will not be resolved. And I don't think, that will really occur. And at least not to the degree that we think. It will maybe some sort of attempt, some sort of a veneer of audit, but I don't think it'd be wise if I was a US policymaker, or I would not be open to that. I would rather keep my gold reserves confidential and using as a strategic element and to defending, to protecting my country from the geopolitical and other financial risks. Now, all central banks are buying gold for that very reason. They want to ensure that their holdings, their assets will not diminish with any kind of a fallout from the geopolitical and financial turmoils, economic disasters globally. So I think with the same thinking, it was very wise for US not to conduct the audit. Not to the degree that we expect.
Yeah, I see what you mean there for sure. So really good to get your thoughts on that. And I wonder if we can take a closer look at what's going on with silver. So we see your outlook for gold in the rest of 2026. What do you see coming for the silver price? It always is outperforming gold to both the upside and downside. I think I see a lot of people wondering, can it get back to that triple digit level this year? So thoughts on silver?
It will. I think right now, silver is $59 today, with change, and in Canadian dollars 89. And I know a lot of investors bought silver at over $110 dollars over that. And I'm getting a lot of questions, or I have a lot of discussions with what will happen. This is the same story as with gold and platinum. Okay. Silver doesn't have the military applications platinum. Silver is not money like gold. However, it is a monetary asset as well, and a huge industrial applications. And, a lot of silver mines were not operational. It takes years for the production to come to a certain level. So we'll come to the point that there'll be a shortage of silver and that will of course push the prices up. But silver is tracking all along with gold. Right now, there is a lot of prediction that at some point the silver might outperform gold, which is quite possible. The thing is, gold is still money and is a major pillar that upholds the world financial systems. So I feel that silver is more volatile, but also has a more possibility of a huge a rise not only in price but also in a I think its role is in a not only in business but also in portfolios, in financial portfolios. It's inexpensive. It's basically, if should its value go increase the same way it increased what happened to gold, that would be huge a profit for those that hold silver. So silver at this price is really a discount buy, and it's posed for huge upswing in the future.
I wonder
It's
if
difficult. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder if we can talk a little bit more about what investors might want to do right now, because I see from our audience a lot of questions about what's coming next and how to act. So we have gold and silver at these lower levels, but people are wondering, is it the right time to get in? Can they go lower? So what are you hearing from people? What are you telling people right now?
It's a very good question, actually, because it will go low and it will go up. This is the time to get in. I think any time for gold is good to get in. I remember having conversations with people when gold was around above $1,000 an ounce. And some people said, oh, well, I will wait for it to go down. Well, it's going to down by $100 to 1,000 and doesn't make difference. And it went to several $1,000s. So this is the same kind of situation. Right now you have a discount prices from what it was a few months ago. So it is for me, when something is at a lower price, discount price, and it's an asset with those attributes, I would definitely focus on that. Now, investors may want to diversify, have three metals, gold, silver, and platinum. Should the military conflict continue to the levels that it is right now, platinum will definitely rise in price. There are two major suppliers of platinum in the world, is South Africa and Russia. Both of them are members of BRICS countries. The sanctions that are currently being imposed on many members of BRICS countries are pushing them closer together. They are going to unite more than that. And also, because of sanctions, there is a mistrust in terms of a global financial systems. Anytime there is a political conflict, that means your asset may be frozen. So what do you invest in? Gold, silver, precious metals. So it's the same situation. So I think from the investment point of view, I would suggest to analyze what are the possibility and how you're going to diversify your portfolio. I know right now people that actually had a significant amount of gold in their portfolio, they were able to hedge against other assets. Gold is a passive asset, but it never loses its value. Actually, gold is one of the amazing miracles, I think, for the financial system, because it makes it stable. So on the individual basis, would you like to look at the opportunity, high risk, investments in a view what is happening in the world and politically, financially, also as a society? Society seems to be disintegrating. Society is shifting. Demographics are shifting. The values are shifting. The new generation is different than the previous generation. So at some point there be almost a conflict of values and everything else. So how do you stabilize your own life? Pension funds, many of them are losing money, and I hear it from people. So we had for example, to give you an example, a pension fund invested at some point in our mutual funds, which are 100% vested in precious metals. We have a gold mutual fund, silver, and the three metal one. With $10 million in a couple of years, their asset became 55 in the last few years. Of course, the past performance does not indicate that they'll be in the future. However, this is something to look at. And I think on the individual basis, I think investors should have a very serious discussions with the financial advisors who are looking at the different assets. Only the gold bugs. People are looking at the people that are into precious metals, look at the precious metals as a very important asset that everyone should have. And I think everyone ought to look at it individually and do not concentrate on a fluctuation. If you look, it's like watching a tennis game. Basically, if you look what's happening on daily basis, look at it, what happened annually. Look at what are the factors that make gold that make or push the gold up, or other. What are the factors that push it down? And when something is cheaper, why? People can buy more. Who is buying? Central banks. Imagine. Wow, they have a discount, a great deal. So later on, when there is not enough of that metal above ground, that's when the focus becomes on the precious metals. And something else, people confuse mining with actual gold above ground. Gold above ground has a limited quantity. I think it's a very long time to have the purity and everything else that is required to maintain its value. Mining is a totally different business, but a lot of people are looking at it and confusing it. So this is something, that homework we have to do. If we want to sustain our lifestyle, if we want to sustain our wealth, and even increase what we have or stabilize it or safeguard it, we have to take a look at the assets that are solid, that have been solid as money for thousands of years, survived every civilization. They survived every political regime, every war.
So we've got a chance to buy right now. We also have a chance to diversify. I think that makes a lot of sense. As we're wrapping up here, are there any final points you would leave investors with, maybe key things that you'll be watching as we're heading into the second half of the year when it comes to the precious metals?
Well, I'm going to be watching very much what will happen in September. I'm going to watch what is going to happen with BRICS countries. What will happen in US is for me, more indicator what is happening globally. US is very, I think, good in trying to protect their interests. And sometimes to protect the interests, you have to refocus people on other things, not the ones that are truly dangerous to you. Remember, there was a discussion, it was Venezuela, Greenland, all those wonderful things. Everybody was seduced by headlines. And everybody was missing what is really happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to be watching that. The other thing I'm going to be watching very carefully what's happening in Russia. This is it's very, very interesting that the lack of response and the possibility of some sort of coalition with some of the BRICS countries. Sometimes, there's a silence before the storm. So fall is going to be full of activity and be very interesting. And I anticipate, of course, the gold price to go up accordingly. But still, remember, always goes down, up and down, up and down. So it's a kind of a natural occurrence that we have to accept. But I think the geopolitical factors are going to be the most important. And of course, there's another condition, weather. I think winter is coming. I'm very concerned about the energy factor and actually the humanitarian, the impact of all those factors on people, on average person. The humanitarian crisis may become something, occurring more often. And that also will have an impact on everything that is happening in financial systems.
All right. So we'll get through the summer. We'll see what happens in the fall. I'm sure we'll have you back to discuss what's going on then. For now, thank you so much for coming on to outline what's happening with gold and silver and global geopolitics. This was really informative as always.
Thank you very much. And yes, have a wonderful summer. And this is for everyone to just relax, and enjoy the life that is so beautiful. And we will deal with things that come our way in the fall.
Well, you as well. Have a great summer. We'll talk to you again
Thank you.
soon. And for now, once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com. And this is Yvonne Blaszczyk with BMG Group.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a comment below.